The prophet Samuel arrives and finds a man named Jesse who has a bunch of sons. And Samuel is on a mission and he's looking for the next king of Israel. So he goes to Jesse, who the Lord told him to go to. And he says, bring all of your sons to me. So Jesse goes and gets all of his sons and lines them up. But as Samuel went down the line, one by one by one, the Lord said no to every single one of them. And then Samuel finally says to Jesse, do you by chance have another son? Because things weren't adding up for Samuel. He knew the Lord had told him to go to Jesse. He knew the Lord told him that one of Jesse's sons would be anointed king. And then by the time he gets all the way down the line, none of them are the ones that God has selected. So Jesse admits, yes, there's actually one more son. It's my son David. He's out in the field tending to the sheep. David's own father didn't think he was qualified to be anointed as the next king of Israel. But the crazy thing is, that's exactly where God was preparing the next king of Israel. Maybe you feel like you are in that field right now. The work that you're doing doesn't feel significant. You feel like everything you're doing is void of meaning. It's boring. You're overlooked. You're not being considered for opportunities. And you may be thinking, I'm just spinning my wheels here. Well, I want to teach you something about the field that changed everything for me, and I believe it'll change everything for you as well. It's really easy to get stuck in this mindset. You're on social media, you see your friends graduating, getting new jobs, doing new things. You watch TV shows that tell you how success is supposed to look, and what you ultimately end up doing is feeling like everybody else is moving forward in life except you. The problem with that thinking is that you begin to lose sight of the significance of the season or the field that you are in. Now let's get back to David in the field for a second, because this is really where the revelation comes from. If David thought the way that you and I are tempted to think today, and we don't know if he did think this way or not, but he could have been out in that field tending the sheep thinking, I'm wasting my life away. There's no career advancement opportunities out here in this field. This is doing nothing for me. It's a dead-end job. My brothers they're the ones out doing the important stuff. They're the ones getting the opportunities, but not me. But the thing is, when you look at the story in retrospect, we know where David ended up. But when you look back at that field, you realize how significant that season was for his life. Those fields where he was shepherding those sheep, he learned some of the most significant character-forming things that prepared him for what God wanted to do with him later in life. The scriptures tell us that he fought off bears and lions, which was preparing him not just for the battle against Goliath, but was preparing him to be a mighty warrior. It also says that he was out playing the harp by himself. What's fun about that is he was learning an instrument and he had nobody to play for, which was probably a good thing. He had no pressure. He could just experiment and learn and worship freely. But little did he know that ultimately that tool would be used to serve the king before him, Saul. Because Saul would have these demonic episodes and David would play the harp and it would soothe Saul and bring him back into his right mind. But then on top of that, David could have looked at those sheep that he was tending to and thought, these are just a bunch of dumb sheep. This has no ramification on my life. How is this serving me? But the truth is, David was learning how to lead. He was leading a flock of sheep, but ultimately he was being prepared to lead a nation, how to lead them faithfully. And he was doing it with sheep when nobody was looking. Here's the key to all this. Nothing was wasted out in that field. And maybe that's how you feel. Maybe you're at a part-time job right now where you're in school or you're in a job that pays the bills, but you don't really like it that much. And you might feel like that's what's happening. You are busy, but you're not moving forward. You are active, but what you're doing doesn't have any meaning for the future. And that's the lie that the enemy wants you to believe, that where you're at right now is wasted. Because if he can get you to believe that, then he can get you to try to change your season or take matters into your own hands instead of allowing God to work in the season that you are in. Because there's no such thing as a wasted season or a wasted rep with God. See, David didn't know he was being prepared to be the king of Israel. He didn't know that. He had no clue of it. God knew what was happening in him in that season, but he didn't know what was happening in him in that season. We always want to know, God, what are you doing in me? Where are you taking me? How are you doing it? How long is it going to take? And God rarely ever shares those details with us. Why? Because if he did share those details with you, then you would take matters into your own hands. He doesn't share that with you so that you have to be dependent on him. You're not even aware of exactly what he's doing in you. Your job is just to be faithful in that season. Give it your all. Apply your whole being to every aspect of that season. And what happens is, as you remain faithful, God continues to do the work in you. There's many examples of this in Scripture, but my favorite is the road to Emmaus at the end of the Gospel of Luke. You can read it for yourself if you like, but Jesus hides his identity from these disciples as they're traveling to Emmaus, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't doing anything. He hid his identity so that he could teach them the Scriptures, and once he taught them the Scriptures and they understood it, then he revealed his identity. So Jesus literally hid himself so that he could do the deep work of formation in their lives, and then he revealed the purpose of it after the deep work was done. And this is precisely what was happening with David and what happens with you and I. God does not tell you what he's forming in you. He doesn't tell you what the purpose of it is. That's hidden from us, and we won't know until the work is actually complete, and that's by design. It's not a punishment. It's God protecting you in his grace so that you don't take matters into your own hands. If he shared with you what was happening, it would be him saying, hey, I need your help. But he doesn't need your help. He doesn't want your help. In fact, our help gets in the way. So he hides the purpose so that we can go through the process faithfully, and then he reveals it after the fact when it's all said and done. So be honest with yourself. We've talked about David and tending the sheep out in the field. What is that moment for you right now in your life? Because we all have that moment. From day to day, season to season, year to year, we are always tending sheep. We're always doing something in our lives that feels insignificant. It feels like it doesn't have purpose, but God is using it to form your character. He's using it to set you up for your next season. Maybe that's school. Maybe it's a part-time job. Maybe it's helping out around the house. Maybe it's whatever, fill in the blank. I want you to do it with the best of your ability. I want you to give your whole self to it day after day after day. And you need to fight those thoughts that this doesn't mean anything, that this is insignificant, because it's not true. You just don't know what the purpose is. That doesn't make it insignificant. And what will happen is, if you give your whole self to it, eventually God will show you what it's been forming in you. And you'll be able to look back, like we're able to look back on David's story and connect all the dots and see how it's all been working together. Let me share you one of many of these stories from my life, because I've seen this happen so many times in my life. But when I came out of college, I finished my undergraduate degree, I started a Christian t-shirt company, and man, I made so many mistakes. I poured thousands of dollars into this t-shirt company. One of the funniest things was we got the first run of t-shirts printed. I printed like, I don't even know how many hundreds of shirts. And I went to do the photo shoot with these actors and models. They were my friends. And we put the shirt on them in daylight and realized that the colors between the shirt and the font were so similar that in daylight, you couldn't even read it. And I had just spent hundreds and hundreds of, I actually spent thousands of dollars on these shirts, and you couldn't even read them. And the whole point of it was to be an evangelistic t-shirt that people read and asked people questions about the gospel. This is one of many mistakes that I made, because I didn't know what I was doing. So I spent all this money. It ended up going absolutely nowhere. And I thought that I had wasted my time, wasted my resources, wasted money, all this stuff. And then a few years later, there was one girl that I had connected with on Twitter while I had these t-shirts, and I had given her some of these t-shirts because she was a Christian and she did modeling, and I wanted her to wear these t-shirts. And lo and behold, I end up marrying that girl. Now, this is just one of many things from that t-shirt company that I learned, or I was blessed by, that in the moment I had no idea what God was doing. I thought I had wasted that whole season, but God introduced me to my wife. And not just that, now I lead a church, and it might seem like I'm exaggerating this, I'm not. Through that t-shirt company, through the failures and through the learning experiences, I learned so much about running an organization, getting things started, building a brand, ordering, budgeting, all this stuff, building a website, building social media, that I was able to just jump in with when I started a church because I already knew how to do it. If I had the mentality that season was wasted, who knows how much I would have missed. So stop trying to escape the season and embrace it, because God is using it. You're not behind, you're actually right where you need to be. And stop letting social media lie to you because people are posting the best version of themselves. The truth is they are lying to you, and then you start lying to yourself that what you're doing is insignificant. It's not true. There's no such thing as insignificant with God. With God, everything is significant. With God, going to the grocery store becomes significant. With God, doing your homework becomes significant. Everything is significant when it's submitted to God. So don't buy the lie. Would you right now in the comments drop, what is your keeping the sheep in this season? What is the thing that you feel is meaningless and insignificant that God is actually using to prepare you, even though you don't know what He's preparing you for? Hey, thanks for watching another video. If you want to keep going, here's the next video I recommend that you watch. And also, please subscribe to the channel. I drop new content every single week, and I want you to be up to date to what God is doing and saying to you in this season of your life.